Hi guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome to another episode of Pressing Matters. Now this episode is going to break away from the format that I have been following as of now, and I'm not going to talk about a tactical profile or a team in this particular one. What I'm going to do is explain to you why Chelsea has spent a net total of £220 million to acquire two players. One is Enzo Fernandes and the other one is Moises Caicedo. Now, if you've been following football transfer news lately, you know that Moises Caicedo has made the move from Brighton to Chelsea for £115 million, and you probably know all of the drama surrounding that transfer and how Liverpool tried to hijack that deal, which led to the price becoming even more extravagant. So Moises Caicedo has switched to Chelsea now, and he has broken the British transfer record with a £115 million fee. The previous record was held by our very own Enzo Fernandes, who came from Benfica in the last window for a net total of £105 million. So if you look at these two players put together, they've cost Chelsea about £220 million, which is mind-boggling. So the question that arises obviously is, why have Chelsea spent £220 million on two midfield players? Because the norm is to spend that kind of money on forwards or wingers. The reason why Chelsea have decided to spend so much money on these two players is because, number one, if we talk about Moises Caicedo, he has a very unique tactical profile. Now what I mean by that is, you have a lot of midfield destroyers or disruptors in the game who play as defensive midfielders, and their sole job is to make interceptions and tackle players to give the defense, the backline, a lot of cover. But those players generally lack the playmaking skills that are required in the modern game. So they are not very good connections between the defense and the attack. They are not very good at collecting the ball under pressure. So when the keeper passes it to them or a defender passes it to them and they are being marked and pressed, as is normal in the modern game, they are not very good at collecting the ball and retaining it, or passing it first time and laying it off and quickly starting a maneuver. Then there are players like Andrea Pirlo, who are excellent at that part but are not necessarily known for their tackling or their disruptive destroyer skills. What Moises Caicedo brings to the table is a combination of these two skill sets, but at a very elite level. So if you go through Moises Caicedo's stat sheet, you will realize that not only is he very high in what we call traditional defensive midfielder metrics, where he is tackling in the top, he's in the top 1 or 2% of players making tackles, interceptions, of players controlling the ball off of the offensive players of the opponent team. Not only is he very high in those metrics, he's also very high in passing metrics. So he is excellent at first time passes. He has very high ball retention metrics. So he brings the best of both worlds quite literally, because he is excellent in both those skill sets. Another thing about Moises Caicedo is that he can dribble under pressure very, very well. So this is not necessarily a skill that we associate with defensive midfielders, because generally we think that they will either do what a regista like Pirlo does and collect the ball and be the playmaker from the back, kind of like a quarterback in American football, or he will be the one who is the first line of defense and protects the defense, kind of like Arturo Vidal was. But what Moises Caicedo does that is separate from those two skill sets is that he is very good at dribbling. So he has the ability to run past players, especially when he collects the ball and he has a player behind him pressing him. So he's very good at turning on a dime and taking the ball away from the press and then carrying it forward. So this is a third skill set that we do not necessarily associate with one player that plays in that position, which is why Chelsea have dished out so much money. Now, do I think it is an acceptable amount of money to play for a defensive midfielder or someone like Moises Caicedo? No. Ideally, I think he should have costed around 80, if we want to stretch it, £90 million. considering the fact that Declan Rice, who is far more accomplished as of now and has more experience, has gone for roughly £105 million, if I'm not wrong. So it would have made sense if Moises Caicedo, considering his age, his lack of experience in the Premier League and on the international level, had gone for around 80 to 90 million pounds. But because Liverpool decided to butt in and they decided to throw a £110 million or £111 million bid at Moises Caicedo and Brighton, Chelsea then had to step up their game. Even though Moises Caicedo had openly said that he was only going to go to Chelsea and that he was not open to a move to Liverpool, yet to please Brighton and to keep them happy, Chelsea had to up their bid and then pay £115 million. If Liverpool had not been involved in the end of that transaction, if they had not tried to hijack that deal, maybe Chelsea could have limited the amount to around 95 or 100 million pounds, which was originally Brighton's asking price. But yeah, Liverpool ended up inflating the market for Caicedo, and we see him becoming the British transfer record now. Another thing about Caicedo that I want to mention, which is a part of his defensive skills as a defensive midfielder, is the fact that he is very stable and calculated in the tackle. So he is not a wayward tackler who jumps into tackles with both feet and takes players right off of their feet. He is not known for getting a lot of red cards. Being a defensive midfielder, considering what he has to do on a regular basis, it is understandable that once in a while he gets a yellow card. But the fact of the matter is that regardless of what position he plays, he is a very competent tackler. He is very good at tracking the ball, and he is always in position when he tackles. Usually when he is standing, but if necessary, he can slide tackle very, very well, which is very important, because for an important player to have that kind of stability is necessary. Otherwise, you are likely to you lose that player mid-game to a red card, or to lose half of his skill set just because he gets a yellow card and now he cannot tackle as profusely as he would like to. What Moises Caicedo brings to the table in relation to Enzo Fernandes is very interesting, and if you really think about it, in the European market as of now, the only other player who could be the perfect companion for Enzo Fernandes would be Manchester City's Rodri. And since it is obvious that Manchester City would not want to lose Rodri, and they would probably ask for an even more insane price, I think the best option that is available to any other team that wants a player of Moises Caicedo's profile to match someone like Enzo, or even for Chelsea for that matter, was Moises Caicedo himself. I do not think there is any other player other than Rodri who has this bag of skill sets which is applicable in all ways, because there are not very many players, like I said before, who can be defensive disruptors and play make from the back and also dribble and retain the ball and take the pressure off of the defense when they have to initiate an attack. So there are a lot of positives to Moises Caicedo's game. A comparison that will make it apparent as to why Moises Caicedo was so important for Chelsea is with Conor Gallaghar. So if you look at the last game that Chelsea played, or the first game of the Premier League season that Chelsea has played against Liverpool, Chelsea were playing Gallaghar in the role that is supposed to be Moises Caicedo's. So Gallaghar did very, very well in that position. He did very well in the tackle. He was very strong and stable there, and he was very good at carrying the ball out of the defensive midfield area and bringing it forward. But the one thing that was apparent, especially in the first 15 to 20 minutes of the game, was that when he was being pressed by one or two players, he was not the right person to receive the ball in that situation, because he is likely to lose the ball out. He is not somebody that receives the ball with his back towards the opponent and then turns very well. He is the kind of player who should have the ball at his feet and be given open space to run into or space to go past players. So even though he did an excellent job, even though he showed how capable he is and how well he takes tactical instructions, that is not Conor Gallagher's profile. He is a player that is supposed to play far further up the pitch suitably in a centre attacking midfielder role. So with Moises Caicedo coming in, now Conor Gallagher does not have to labour in that position, and now we have a player who's actually meant to play that position and is one of the best players in the world in that position, considering his time with Brighton. Now, if we talk about him and Enzo Fernandes put together, what he does is Moises Caicedo helps Enzo Fernandes play further up the pitch, and he helps him be more offensive. If you go online, if you go to Transfermarkt, or if you go to any of these sites that give you a player's metrics for the season, you will realize that Enzo Fernandez's passing metrics have not gone down since he joined Chelsea. His dribbling metrics have not gone down. His ball retention has not gone down. The only thing that has changed about Enzo Fernandez's metrics is the fact that he has fewer touches in the offensive third or the final third of the pitch. Now, why is that important? Is because Enzo Fernandes can do the defensive midfielder role slightly differently to Moises Caicedo, as we saw last year, and he's good at it. But his true skill set is when it comes to linking the defense and the attack and being that attacking midfielder that is like a wild card that the team on the opposite end cannot control. And what Moises Caicedo does is he gives Enzo Fernandes the leeway to go forward without worrying about defensive responsibilities, because Moises Caicedo can cover that up. Another thing that he maintains, that he does very, very well, is his ability to also go up and switch positions with the other person in the double defensive pivot. So if Enzo Fernandes, say due to a passage of play, is in a position where he is the defensive midfielder because he has come back, Moises Caicedo has the ability to run up and take that position that Enzo Fernandes is supposed to occupy, and he has the ability to pass, he has the ability to run at players. So he can also cover up for Enzo Fernandes when he falls back into a defensive role, maybe because of a passage of play. So what this does is, if there is a double pivot in the back and you have one playmaker and one defensive player, generally the opponent is going to cover the playmaker, so they're going to mark him with 1, 2, maybe even 3 players, because they do not expect the defensive player to build anything offensive or go up with the ball or pass very effectively. What Moises Caicedo does is, because of his ability to do those things and take over Enzo Fernandez's role and run up or pass, he now splits the opponent's press. So they cannot concentrate only on Enzo, because if they start doing that, then they give Moises Caicedo the space to go up and do whatever he wants, and then they're in trouble. If they do the opposite and they cover only Moises Caicedo, then Enzo has all the space and time in the world and he can go up and do whatever he wants, which is something he's good at. So now the opponent's press has to be split between these two defensive midfielders, or these two players in the double pivot, which gives Chelsea's midfield a lot of versatility and a lot of options. So it makes it very confusing for the opponent's press, because now they have to worry about 2 players who can do the same things very, very well in offense, and they have Moises Caicedo to worry about in defense. The last thing that I'm going to mention is that Enzo Fernandes, even though he can play the defensive midfield role, is not excellent when it comes to recovery. So he can tackle very well when he is already in a defensive position and the attack is coming at him. But when he has to run back and recover, he is not the fastest in recovery. So he is liable to either fouling a player or letting a player run past him. That is not the case with Moises Caicedo. Moises Caicedo is very, very fast, very strong, and he has the ability to use his body to apply strength onto an opponent and just push him off the ball, or maintain defensive solidity even though he is up forward. He has the ability to run back and retain his position and be that final cog in the defense that Chelsea genuinely need. So this is why Chelsea has spent £220 million on these 2 players. I know it is a ridiculous amount, but it is what it is. And considering their skill sets, I might not be happy about the price that Moises Caicedo has come at, but I'm very happy that Moises Caicedo is now a part of Chelsea, because his player profile is such that we needed very, very badly. Anyway, let me know what you think about this new signing. And we also know that Chelsea are likely to buy Romeo Lavia, who is another player that can take Enzo Fernandes' role. And Chelsea are likely to buy Michael Olise as a winger, as somebody who can supplement Noni Madueke, and probably another attacking midfielder or another forward line player. So the market is still open, things are still up for a toss. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you want me to make a video on the other possible transfers that Chelsea might be going into before the window ends. And yeah, like, share, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you next time.